You can sleep somewhere else tonight. My name is Dylan. I'm 39 years old, and I stood on my own front porch in Charleston, South Carolina, staring at a door that wouldn't open. The locks had been changed. My key didn't work. My wife, Vanessa, stood on the other side with her arms crossed, watching me through the window like I was some stranger who'd shown up uninvited. I didn't yell, didn't pound on the door. I just stood there feeling the weight of everything that had led to this moment settle into my chest like a stone. She'd been pulling away for months, maybe longer. I worked construction, long hours, hard days, and when I came home she'd barely look up from her phone. Dinner was cold. Conversation was colder. I tried. I asked her what was wrong, if we could talk, if she wanted to go out somewhere and reconnect. She'd wave me off like I was bothering her. But this, changing the locks, that was a new level. I pulled my phone out and called her. Through the window I saw her glance at the screen and decline the call. She turned her back to me and walked toward the kitchen. I stood there another minute, then turned and walked down the steps. That's when I heard the door open behind me. Not my door, the neighbor's. Her name was Ivy. 25, blonde, lived 2 houses down in a small rental she'd moved into 6 months ago. We'd talked a few times, small talk mostly. She worked from home doing something with graphic design, always seemed friendly, always smiled when she saw me. She was standing in her doorway now, leaning against the frame, watching me with a quiet expression I couldn't quite read. "Locked out?" she asked. I nodded. Didn't trust myself to say much. She tilted her head slightly, then said, "My bed's free, if you need somewhere to crash." It wasn't a joke. Her voice was soft, steady. She wasn't mocking me. She was offering. I glanced back at my house. Vanessa was still inside, probably thinking I'd come crawling back, begging to be let in. I looked at Ivy again. She didn't move, just waited. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like someone actually saw me. I didn't answer her yet. Just stood there on the sidewalk, halfway between 2 doors, one that had been slammed in my face, and one that had just been opened. Behind me, I heard my front door crack open. Vanessa's voice cut through the evening air. "Dylan?" I didn't turn around. "Dylan, don't be dramatic. Come inside and we'll talk." Still didn't turn. Ivy's door was still open. She was still watching me, and Vanessa's voice got sharper. "Dylan, I swear to God." I finally looked back at her. She was standing on the porch now, arms still crossed, face tight with irritation. Not concern, not regret. Just annoyance that I wasn't following the script. I turned back toward Ivy, and I started walking. I married Vanessa 7 years ago. She was sharp, confident, ambitious. I liked that about her at first. She had goals. She didn't settle. I thought we'd build something together. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about us and started being about her. Her career, her friends, her schedule. I became an accessory, a convenience, the guy who paid half the bills and stayed out of her way. I worked 40-hour weeks, sometimes more, pouring concrete and framing houses in the Carolina heat. I came home exhausted, covered in dust, and she'd barely acknowledge me. If I tried to talk about my day, she'd cut me off with something about her work stress or her book club drama or whatever else was more important than anything I had to say. I stopped trying after a while, started eating dinner in front of the television while she stayed in the bedroom on her laptop. We'd go days without a real conversation, weeks without touching each other. I thought maybe it was just a phase. Marriage had rough patches. Everyone said so. But the rough patches kept stretching longer and longer until there wasn't anything smooth left. Then came the passive-aggressive comments, the little digs. She'd make jokes in front of her friends about how I never dressed up anymore, or how I smelled like sawdust. I'd laugh it off, but it wore on me, made me feel small. A month ago, I suggested we take a weekend trip, get out of town, reconnect. She looked at me like I'd asked her to climb a mountain. "I don't have time for that right now," she said. But she had time to go out with her friends every Friday, Had time for yoga classes and wine nights and shopping trips, just not for me. I started noticing other things. How she'd smile at her phone and then quickly put it down when I walked into the room. How she'd started dressing nicer on days she said she was just running errands. How she'd come home late and offer vague explanations that didn't quite add up. I didn't want to think she was cheating. Didn't want to go there. But the doubt crept in anyway, quiet and persistent. 2 weeks ago I came home early. Found her on the back patio, laughing on the phone. When she saw me, her expression shifted, quick, almost guilty. She ended the call and said it was just a coworker. I didn't push it, but I didn't believe her either. Then tonight happened. The locks, the door, the cold dismissal, and Ivy. I'd noticed her before, of course. Hard not to. She was young, pretty and kind in a way that felt genuine. She'd wave when she saw me pulling into the driveway. Once she brought over cookies she'd baked and said she'd made too many. Another time, she asked if I could help her move a couch. I did. We talked for a bit after. She was easy to talk to. Didn't make me feel like I was taking up space. I didn't think much of it at the time, just a friendly neighbor. But tonight, standing in her doorway, I realized something. She saw me. Actually saw me. Vanessa hadn't looked at me, really looked at me, in years. I heard Vanessa's voice again from across the yard. Dylan, if you walk into that house, don't bother coming back. I stopped at the edge of Ivy's driveway, turned around. Vanessa was standing on our porch, hands on her hips, face red. She wasn't worried. She was angry. Angry that I wasn't doing what she expected. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I looked at Ivy. And I kept walking. I stepped onto Ivy's porch and she moved aside to let me in. The door closed behind me. It was quiet inside. Clean. Warm. The kind of place that felt lived in without feeling cluttered. You okay? She asked. I nodded, but I wasn't sure if I meant it. She gestured toward the couch. Sit. I'll get you some water. I sat, rubbed my hands over my face. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. 3 texts from Vanessa. You're being ridiculous. This is embarrassing. Come home and stop acting like a child. I put the phone face down on the coffee table. Ivy came back with a glass of water and handed it to me. She sat on the other end of the couch, legs tucked under her, watching me with that same quiet expression. You don't have to talk about it, she said. But if you want to, I'm here. I drank half the glass before I said anything. She changed the locks, I said. Didn't even tell me. Just decided I didn't live there anymore. Ivy didn't say anything. Just listened. She's been pulling away for months, I continued. Maybe longer. I kept thinking it'd get better, that we'd figure it out. But tonight, I trailed off. Shook my head. Tonight, I realized she doesn't want to figure it out. She just wants me gone. I'm sorry, Ivy said softly. Yeah, me too. We sat in silence for a minute. Then she said, You don't deserve that. I looked at her. She wasn't trying to be comforting. She was just stating a fact. Thanks, I said. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. Vanessa's name lit up the screen. I let it ring. Ivy glanced at the phone, then back at me. She's freaking out, isn't she? I almost smiled. Yeah. Good, Ivy said. She should be. The call went to voicemail. A minute later, another text came through. If you think you can just run to some girl's house and make me look like the bad guy, you're wrong. I showed Ivy the message. She read it and raised an eyebrow. She's blaming you for her locking you out? That's how she works, I said. Everything's my fault, even when it's not. Ivy leaned back against the couch. How long have you been putting up with that? I thought about it. Too long. She didn't push further, just sat with me in the quiet. Outside, I heard a car door slam, then footsteps, then a knock on Ivy's front door. We both looked toward it. Ivy stood up. Want me to answer it? I shook my head. I'll go. I walked to the door and opened it. Vanessa was standing on the porch, arms crossed, eyes blazing. Get out here, she said. Now. No, I said. Her mouth opened, then closed. She wasn't used to hearing that word from me. Excuse me? She said. I said no. Dylan, you're embarrassing yourself. And me. Get out of that house and come home. You locked me out, I said. You don't get to decide when I come home. Her face flushed. I locked you out because you needed space. Because you've been insufferable lately and I needed a break from you. That's not what you said an hour ago. Well, I'm saying it now. Come home, we'll talk. No. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Dylan, if you stay in there, people are going to think things. You know that, right? Let them think whatever they want. Her eyes flicked past me toward Ivy, who was standing a few feet behind me in the living room. Vanessa's jaw tightened. This is what you want? Her? I want to not be treated like garbage, I said. That's what I want. She stared at me, and for the first time I saw something flicker in her expression. Not regret, not love, just panic. She'd expected me to come crawling back, to apologize, to beg, and I wasn't doing any of that. Fine, she said, voice sharp. Stay here. See if I care. She turned and walked back toward our house, her steps quick and angry. I closed the door, turned around. Ivy was watching me with a small, almost proud smile. You okay? She asked. I nodded, and for the first time in a long time, I meant it. The next morning, I woke up on Ivy's couch. She'd given me a blanket and a pillow the night before, insisted I stay, and disappeared into her bedroom without another word. I checked my phone. 14 missed calls. 23 texts. All from Vanessa. I scrolled through them. They ranged from angry to manipulative to desperate. You're ruining everything. People are going to talk. You're acting like a child. Fine. Stay there. I don't need you anyway. Please come home. Let's talk. I put the phone down. Ivy came out of her bedroom around 8, wearing sweatpants and a loose shirt, hair tied back. Morning, she said. Coffee? Yeah, thanks. She poured 2 mugs and handed me one. We sat at her small kitchen table. She blow up your phone? Ivy asked. Pretty much. You gonna answer her? Not yet. Ivy nodded, sipping her coffee. What's the plan? I hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know. Figure out where I'm staying. Get my stuff. Maybe talk to a lawyer. You're serious, she said. About leaving? Yeah. She studied me for a moment. Good. You should be. I appreciated that she didn't try to talk me into fixing things. Didn't say marriage was hard or that people go through rough patches. She just accepted it. Around 9, I drove over to the house. Vanessa's car was in the driveway. I used my garage code to get in through the side door, went straight upstairs to grab some clothes. She was waiting for me in the bedroom. So you finally came back, she said, just getting my things. Dylan, this is ridiculous. You slept at a neighbor's house. A woman's house. Do you know how that looks? I don't care how it looks. She stepped in front of me, blocking the closet. You do care. You're just angry. I get it. I shouldn't have changed the locks, that was too much. But you walking out like that, running to her, that's worse. I didn't run to anyone. You kicked me out. I didn't kick you out. I just needed space. By locking me out of my own house. She didn't have an answer for that. I moved past her and grabbed a duffel bag from the closet, started packing clothes. What are you doing? She asked. Leaving. For how long? I don't know. Her voice cracked. Dylan, stop, please, let's just talk. We've been talking for months, or trying to, you never listen. That's not fair. Isn't it? She sat on the edge of the bed, hands in her lap. I know I've been distant. I know things haven't been great. But that doesn't mean you get to just leave. You made it pretty clear last night that you didn't want me here. I was upset. I didn't mean it. I zipped up the bag, turned to face her. Vanessa, you've been pushing me away for months. You've made me feel like I don't matter, like I'm just in your way. Last night was just the final proof. That's not true. Then tell me the last time you asked me how I was doing. The last time we had a real conversation. The last time you looked at me like you actually wanted me around. She opened her mouth, closed it. Nothing. I picked up the bag. I'll be back for the rest of my stuff later. Where are you going? Somewhere I'm not treated like a burden. I walked out. I stayed at a motel for the next 3 days. Cheap place off the highway. Gave me time to think. Vanessa kept calling, kept texting. The messages got more desperate. I miss you. Please come home. We can fix this. But none of them said sorry. None of them acknowledged what she'd done. They were just about her wanting things to go back to normal. Back to me being the one who put up with everything while she did whatever she wanted. On the 4th day, I called a lawyer. Explained the situation. He said I had options. Told me to start documenting everything. Gather bank statements, receipts, anything that showed the financial side of the marriage. I did. And the more I dug, the more I realized how one-sided things had been. She'd been spending money without telling me. Big purchases, expensive dinners with her friends. A weekend trip to Savannah I didn't know about until I saw the credit card statement. I'd been working my ass off while she lived like she was single. I started making copies of everything, sent them to the lawyer. On the 5th day, Ivy texted me. How are you holding up? Okay. Thanks for asking. If you need anything, let me know. I appreciated that. She wasn't pushing. Wasn't inserting herself into the mess. Just letting me know she was there. I thought about her a lot over those days, how easy it had been to talk to her, how she didn't make me feel like I had to prove myself or walk on eggshells. I wasn't stupid. I knew she was interested. The way she'd looked at me, the way she'd opened her door, the offer to stay. But I wasn't ready for that. Wasn't ready for anything beyond just getting my head straight. Still, it was nice to know someone cared. On the 6th day, I went back to the house again. This time Vanessa wasn't there. I grabbed more of my stuff, clothes, tools, a few personal items. As I was loading the truck, a car pulled up. Not Vanessa's. A man I didn't recognize got out. Mid-30s, dressed nice, confident walk. He looked at me, then at the house, then back at me. Can I help you? I asked. I'm looking for Vanessa, he said. She's not here. He nodded slowly. You must be Dylan. Yeah. Who are you? Trevor. I work with Vanessa. I'd heard that name before. She'd mentioned him a few times, always in passing, always casual. But standing there looking at him, I knew. How long? I asked. He blinked. Excuse me? How long have you been sleeping with my wife? He didn't answer right away, just stood there weighing his options. Then he sighed. Look, man, I didn't know she was married at first. By the time I found out, things were already what? Complicated. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was exactly what I'd expected. Get out of here, I said. Dylan, get out. He left. I stood there in the driveway, hands shaking, not from anger, but from the sheer relief of finally knowing the truth. She'd been cheating. For how long, I didn't know. But it didn't matter. I had my answer. I drove back to the motel, sat on the bed, stared at the wall. My phone buzzed. Vanessa. Can we please talk? I typed back. Who's Trevor? The typing bubbles appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then nothing. She called a minute later. I answered. Dylan, let me explain. How long? Silence. Vanessa. How long? A few months. I closed my eyes. A few months. It didn't mean anything. I was confused. Things weren't good between us and I... Stop. Dylan, just stop. I hung up. She called back. I didn't answer. She texted. Please, let me explain. It's over. I ended it. I want to work on us. I didn't respond. The next morning, I went to Ivy's place. Knocked on the door. She answered. surprised to see me. "Hey," she said. "You okay? Can I come in?" "Of course." We sat on her couch. I told her everything, the affair, Trevor, the months of lies. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she just said, "I'm sorry." "Yeah, me too." "What are you going to do?" "File for divorce, get out, move on." She nodded. "Good." We sat in silence for a moment. Then she said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you come here that first night? You could have gone to a motel or a friend's place, but you came here." I thought about it. "Because you were the only person who made me feel like I mattered." She looked at me, something soft in her eyes. "You do matter, Dylan." I believed her. We talked for a while longer. Nothing heavy, just easy conversation, the kind I hadn't had in years. When I left, she walked me to the door. "You're going to be okay," she said. "I know." She smiled. "Good." I drove back to the motel, feeling lighter than I had in months. Vanessa could keep the house, keep the lies, keep Trevor. I was done. The divorce papers were filed 2 weeks later. Vanessa fought it at first, tried to spin the story, said I'd abandoned her. But the lawyer shut that down fast. We had the affair documented. We had the financial records showing her spending. We had everything. She called me one last time, voice shaking. "Dylan, please, don't do this. We can fix this." "No," I said. "We can't. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll do anything." "You had months to do something. You didn't." "I love you." "No, you don't." I hung up. The final hearing was 3 months later. Quick, clean. She got the house. I got my freedom and half the assets. She sat across the courtroom looking small and defeated. Trevor wasn't there. Apparently, he'd moved on too. When the judge finalized everything, I stood up and walked out without looking back. Outside, Ivy was waiting. She'd offered to come for support. I'd said yes. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Free," I said. She smiled. "Good." We went to lunch, talked about everything except Vanessa. A few weeks later, I found a small apartment near the coast. Quiet, simple, mine. Ivy helped me move in, brought over a housewarming gift, a plant she said was impossible to kill. "Even for you," she said, grinning. "Thanks," I said. "I think." We stood in the living room surrounded by boxes, and she looked at me. "You're going to be okay," she said. "I already am." 6 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Vanessa at a grocery store. She looked tired, thinner. Her hair wasn't done the way it used to be. She saw me and froze. "Dylan," she said. "Vanessa." Awkward silence. "How are you?" she asked. "Good. You?" "Fine." Another silence. "I heard you moved," she said. "Yeah, got a place near the water." She nodded. "That's good. I'm glad you're doing well." I didn't say anything. She shifted her weight. "I just want you to know I'm sorry. For everything." "Okay." "I mean it. I messed up. I know that now." I looked at her. Saw the regret. The exhaustion. The realization that she'd thrown away something she didn't value until it was gone. "I hope you figure things out," I said. "Thanks." I walked away. Didn't look back. Later that night, I sat on my balcony, watching the sun set over the water. Ivy was inside making dinner. She'd been coming over more often. We weren't rushing anything, just letting things happen naturally. She came out with 2 plates and handed me one. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "I am." She sat beside me, and we ate in comfortable silence. Vanessa had shut the door on me, locked me out, made me feel like I didn't belong, but someone else had opened theirs. And that made all the difference. Vanessa's life fell apart slowly after the divorce. Trevor had left her shortly after everything came out, moving to another state for work and cutting all contact. Her friends, the ones she'd spent so much time with instead of working on our marriage, distanced themselves once the gossip spread. The house she'd fought to keep became a financial burden she couldn't manage alone, and within a year she'd sold it at a loss. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd moved into a small apartment across town and taken a second job to make ends meet. The confidence and control she'd wielded so easily over me had crumbled, replaced by the consequences of her own choices. She'd gambled on having it all and ended up with nothing. I learned that when one door closes, sometimes the best thing you can do is stop knocking and walk toward the one that's already open.